I painted a historical event for you so far. What happened in history? Now I want you to see how Allah describes this event. Not how I describe this event, not how you describe this event, not how the Sahaba thought about this event, not even how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees this event, but how Allah sees this event. The ayah comes down to describe this entire story, and the ayah says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. No doubt about it, we have granted to you an obvious, unconditional, open, clear victory. You have been given a special favor of the most awesome victory of all time. That is the Qur'an's description of what happened. This is actually the ultimate victory. What? This is the ultimate victory? If you ask a Muslim child, what was the day of victory in Islam? In the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, what is the day of victory? What are they going to say? When Makkah was conquered. Yes? When Makkah was conquered was the day of victory. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina did not come down when Makkah was conquered. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina came down when we didn't get to go to Hajj. When we signed a treaty that was against us. When we were completely disappointed. Where's the victory? I don't see it. CNN won't see it. The historian won't see it. Even Sahaba don't see it. The Sahaba don't see it. How can you call this victory? Oh, by the way, Allah did not say, Inna fatahna lahum fathan mubina. Inna fatahna laka. Laka, Ya Rasulullah. Laka, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Fathan mubina. I want you to understand this. According to Allah, the greatest victory of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this is not a victory for the Muslims, this is not a victory for Islam. In the ayah, this is a victory for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The greatest victory in the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are the Sahaba, who even when they have the most intense emotions, they still obeyed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the ultimate victory. This mob who was able to control their emotions, because their emotions are very high, but their loyalty to Allah's Messenger is even higher, and out of that loyalty they can maintain their discipline. There is never ever going to be a greater victory than this, ever. It's not Hudaybiyah, it's the Sahaba. It's the Sahaba. People miss this point. Why am I telling you this? Because nowadays we make dua for victory. We make dua for victory, yes or no? We see the Muslims in the difficult situations around the ummah, and we make dua that Allah gives them and gives us victory. If we don't understand what victory means from the Qur'an, then maybe we don't understand what we're asking for. The victory of conquering a land, the victory of removing the kuffar, the victory of seizing territory. You know what Allah calls that? Wa ukhra lam taqdiru alayha qad ahata Allahu biha. Oh, it's secondary. Allah calls the conquest of land secondary. Allah calls the conquest of the hearts of the believers primary. That's not my description. That is not a historian's description. Look, anybody else who would read the story of Hudaybiyah, they would think of it as a loss. But Allah will describe it as a victory. He'll describe it as a victory. The one thing I want you to think about here, and inshallah I'll give you the secondary benefit too before I close, but just this first ayah, if I talked about the second ayah, we'd be here till Fajr, and I got a flight to catch, so we can't do that. But just this first ayah, I want to share something with you. You know, there's a secondary benefit of Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. Let me explain. The treaty says that you are not going to fight with us and we are not going to fight with you. But if a Muslim runs away from Mecca, what would we do? Send him back. We'll send him back. And among other disadvantages to the Muslims. Okay. Let me not tell you about the seerah for a second. Let me tell you about international politics. Major governments in the world say we do not negotiate with terrorists. You ever heard this before? Governments say we do not negotiate with terrorists. If you negotiate with them, that means you have accepted that they are legitimate. Yes or no? Because you signed a paper with them, you shook a hand with them, you did a press release with them, you did a treaty with them, which means you think of them as a legitimate government. So if we sign a treaty with them, that is proof that they are legitimate in our eyes. Okay? And now if a government thinks that the group, their enemy is small and they can crush them, they say, we don't need to make a treaty with these people, we can crush them. They're criminal, they're nothing. But if a group becomes powerful, so powerful that you can't just crush them, then you become weak and you have to accept that we have to sign a what? A treaty. The political victory in this ayah is that for the first time, the Quraysh, who up until now, what did they consider the Muslims? They considered the Muslims a cult. They considered the Muslims traitors. You can call them a terrorist group. Back then's language. But now they are signing a treaty with the Muslims, which means the Quraysh have accepted the might and the muscle and the power of the Muslims, and Allah made them accept the power of the Muslims even when the Muslims didn't have weapons in their hands. They did not accept the might of the Muslims in Ahzab. They did not accept the might of the Muslims in Badr, not in Uhud, not in Ahzab, but they accepted the power of the Muslims when Muslims came in Ihram. I need you to understand that. Power is not about weapons. Power is not about weapons. In this ayah, the way we think of when will the kafir understand the power of the Muslim? When will they recognize the power of the Muslim? We have an emotional thought about that. But the seerah and the Qur'an have such a deeper understanding of this issue. They have such a powerful, such a powerful reality that the Quraysh had to sign this treaty. Now all of Arabia, the rest of the tribes, they don't like Quraysh. You remember why they don't like Quraysh? Because they made them go all the way to Ahzab. Now all of Quraysh, all of the tribes see, yo, the Quraysh, they were going to kill the Muslims 6 months ago, and now they're ready to sign a treaty. These Muslims are powerful, man. These Muslims are serious. They're even more powerful than who? Than Quraysh. Because the Quraysh were forced to sign a treaty even when the Muslims were not with any weapons. That's crazy, man. That's some crazy tribal politics. And in this time, we have 10 years of peace. 10 years of no fighting. 10 years of no fighting. Guess what? I want you to, have you ever seen the map during election season? They say this party's colored blue, the other party's colored red. Right? So the blue is this big and the red is that big. Right? Now think of it like this. I'll say that we'll give the Quraysh purple. Purple was huge. And the Muslims, white, was very little. It was very little. But especially during Ahzab, during the trench wars, all the tribes were against who? The Muslims. So the purple map was huge and the white map was very small. Now this little tiny white map goes over to the Quraysh and they make them sign a treaty. Now the white has become a little bit bigger. And the rest of the huge purple map has become neutral. Why did they become neutral? Because they don't like Quraysh anymore. So what do the Muslims do during the peacetime? The Muslims go to every one of those tribes and say, hey, you want to stay neutral? Fine. But if you want to side with us, you could side with us too. Because we're big. We got muscle. Look at what we made the Quraysh do. And so some tribes say, nah, you guys are, I'm scared of both of you guys. I don't want nothing. I want to be Switzerland. Okay? And some other tribes say, you know what? Sign me up. And guess what happens in these supposed to be 10 years. It doesn't take 10 years. But in months, the map of the region, the white starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And what's getting smaller? The purple's getting smaller. Poor guys are getting squeezed. And they're so squeezed and they're scared. Because one of the items in the treaty is, if we fight or you fight, if any fighting happens, then the whole thing is cancelled. Then the whole thing is cancelled. So the Quraysh ended up fighting by accident. They didn't mean to do it. They just ended up in a fight and some Muslims got killed. Oh no. If the treaty is gone, then what will the Muslims do? Take over. And now that the white is huge and the purple is tiny, they have no power left. So Abu Sufyan, who's not a Muslim, who's one of the great leaders of Quraysh, has to now come to Medina. He has to come to Medina. Imagine, they used to consider them insects. They considered them nothing. Now they have to come to Medina, and he has to go make a meeting with Rasulullah ﷺ. So he goes to the house of Rasulullah ﷺ. And by the way, his daughter is married to Rasulullah ﷺ. So he goes into the house, he sees his daughter, he goes inside, he's about to sit down. She says, "Dad, wait a second." And she rolls up the mat. "Now you can sit on the floor." And he says, "Excuse me? Am I too good for this mat? Or is this mat too good for me?" She says, "Well, actually that's the Rasul's mat, it's too good for you." Dang. Now he's already been told, well, what is he going to negotiate now? His own daughter just kind of put him in his place. You know, and this is, you don't treat an ambassador like that. Imagine an ambassador comes to your government, it comes to the Parliament House, and they say, "You're about to sit on a chair?" They move the chair. "Please sit on the floor." That's insult, isn't it? That means this ambassador has no respect with us. You are nothing to us now. You used to think we are nothing, now we think you are nothing. So he has no room to negotiate. He's begging and pleading, "Please don't attack us, please. Sorry, we made a mistake. I know the treaty is cancelled, but can you please renew the treaty? Please, 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 please." And the Muslims say what? No. And we go and we make Hajj, and we make it peacefully. We don't take weapons. We just go make Hajj, and we conquer Makkah without a single weapon. We just conquer Makkah. But all of that happened the day the Muslims were frustrated and they couldn't fight and their anger was high, and they said, "Come on, let's get the revenge for Uthman." And they said, "Come on, let's just make Hajj. Come on, we're right there with the enemy. Allah is with us. Let's just go fight them. Why are we accepting these insulting negotiations against the kuffar? We should take the kuffar on. Allah is with us. The angels are with us. Let's do this right now." That is the time where Allah would calm them down, and they would listen to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they would learn to back off. Because just within that year, you won't have to pick up any arms. You're just going to walk right in. And that all of that began with the first domino that fell was Hudaybiyah, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And Allah sums all of that up with one ayah, "Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina." We have given you, clearly for you we have given a special kind of victory. We have given a special kind of victory. Wallahi, I tell you something. In Arabic, "Inna fatahna fathan mubinan laka" is expected. The jar majroor is supposed to be at the end, in grammar. When you make it muqaddam, it actually becomes mukhtas, which means, especially for you, we have given a clear victory. You know what that means? This is the last few comments I have for you. These are just, again, this is not the full lecture on this subject. These are just the thoughts I have thus far. Inshallah ta'ala, make dua, I'm able to complete this study and do something comprehensive, because personally I believe Muslims need to understand Surah Al-Fath very, very clearly, because this is the surah of victory, and I personally believe there's a lot of confusion among us what victory means. Is salat time already, or? Hana waqt salam? Ladina waqt? Okay, okay. So one last thing about Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. How do countries win in wars? By bombing, by killing, by war, by overpowering the forces, by sending tanks into the city. Isn't that how they win wars? And even when they take over, if a military takes over a country, does that necessarily mean that the people that live inside that country have given up? Has it happened in the world today that there's a military from another country, it takes over, it's invaded, but the people have not accepted it? Does that happen? So you cannot call that a clear victory. It's a military victory, but it's not a victory of the hearts of the people. It's not even a complete military victory. It's not a victory in every sense of the word. It's maybe just a victory against the army, but not a victory against the people. It's not, in every sense of the word. You understand? So it's very difficult to say in wars that a victory is absolutely clear. You get me? In the Fath of Makkah, Allah says, "Inna fatahna laka fathan," not just fathan. "Inna fatahna laka fathan mubinan." It's going to be clear. The clearest victory in human history is the victory given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that victory wasn't even the result of war. It wasn't even the result of war. It was the result of strategy. It was the result of patience. It was more important than anything else, it was the result of discipline. It was the result of discipline. The Sahaba are the ultimate victory. Not because they go in the battlefield, because they obey the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam unconditionally. When he tells them to put the ihram on, they put the ihram on. When he takes it off, they take it off. When they walk to Makkah, they walk to Makkah. When they have to walk back, they'll walk back. No complaints. No complaints. We want victory. Allah is telling us the prerequisites. We have to have discipline. We have to have control over our emotions. We cannot be mobs, angry mobs that can't think clearly. We have to be people that understand the definition of victory from Allah's book. We have to become these thoughtful people, The ummah today, the last thing you find in us is discipline. It's so sad. The last thing you see in us is discipline. We don't even have discipline in the way we park our cars outside the masjid. By the way, when salat begins, it's beautiful discipline. It's beautiful. We all, you could be anywhere, our kids could be going crazy. When qad qamat as-salah, qad qamat as-salah, we all line up perfectly. Isn't that the case? Everybody checks their feet. Everybody lines up perfectly. And as soon as salat is done, we go back to chaos again. The salat 5 times a day, what does it teach us? Discipline. And actually it proves that Muslims are capable of amazing discipline. You cannot find any other religion that just a simple call is made. Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, qad qamat, and all the conversations will stop, all the cell phones will turn off, everything will go dark, everybody will stop playing, everybody will stop sitting down, everybody will stand up perfectly, line up like an army. Even though they don't know each other, they never trained together, they don't even know who the general is who's leading the prayer, they don't know nothing, but they will line up immediately. That is impossible anywhere else other than this religion. We are a people of discipline, but unfortunately outside of salah, what we learn in salah needs to now come outside of salah. We need to become disciplined people. These are some thoughts that I wanted to share with you, especially with the younger generation here, just to illustrate that there's a lot to think about in Allah's book. There's a lot to reflect in this deen. A lot to understand, a lot to grasp. And if we begin to become people who deeply, truly understand the book of Allah, then we will be in a better position to act on the book of Allah. If you want to act on the book of Allah, you first have to understand the book of Allah. If you don't have a good understanding, you're not going to have a good action. You're not going to have good implementation of Allah's book. And this book is not like a magazine. It's not like an article or a blog. You can't just read it just like this and I get it. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Don't they reflect deeply on the Qur'an? Every ayah you have to think about it. You have to ponder over it. You have to study it. You have to dive in like you're diving into an ocean. And then you will get the wisdom that you can act on. You can't just casually browse through it. It's not a casual read. You can't skim through the Qur'an to get its treasure. You understand that? We unfortunately today, we have a very shallow appreciation of the Qur'an. We have to change that in our culture. We have to become a culture of people that celebrate tadabbur in the Qur'an, tafakkur in the Qur'an, ta'allum of the Qur'an, studying tafsir of the Qur'an in depth. studying its language in depth, understanding it and pondering over it and discussing it in depth, so that we can all act on it in the way that we're supposed to act on it. That is my dua for this ummah. That may Allah Azza wa Jal really make us a people that are connected with His book the way we're supposed to be connected. That understand it in the most pure, the most refined way, in the way it was supposed to be understood. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us a people of the Qur'an that don't take it, don't become lax in regards to it. The month of the Qur'an is still fresh in our hearts. We just came out of Ramadan. But don't let it dry up so easily. Study Allah's book, guys. Study Allah's book. You spend your nights discussing world politics and nothing has changed. How about you spend your nights memorizing a surah or two? How about you spend your nights studying the book of Allah a little bit more? If the world won't change, at least you will change. At least you will change. And wallahi, when you change, then the world changes. Until you don't change, the world will not change. The world will not change. The Sahaba were the ultimate change. They brought an amazing transformation within themselves by Allah's book. And because of the change inside of themselves, Allah gave victory in their hands. The victory of conquest was nothing. That was just nothing. That was insignificant. This dunya was created for us. It's been made for us. We just have to prove to Allah that we are just for Him. When we prove to Allah that we are for Him, then He will hand dunya over. It's no big deal to Him. There's nothing to Him, subhanallah.